Bouncing ball animation in the 2021 Adobe Animate. You'll see here that they do on the opening screen have a bouncing ball tutorial. It's okay, but it doesn't do everything that I want to teach. So I'm going to do a few other things. I'm going to go to create a new full HD file right here. And as soon as I click that, it'll bring up a new file. And it shows me here that I'm in Doc in my properties. First, I'm in my classic workspace. You can work in a different workspace if you like, but I'm in Classic because I've been working in the program for a long time and I'm used to working in Classic. So I'm at 1920 by 1080 in my document settings. I'd rather work at 15 frames per second. And I'd like to see my whole stage, so I'm going to bring this down to 50%. Quick little thing, I'm going to need to create keyframes, and so I'd like to use the keyboard shortcuts when I create keyframes. So I'm going to make sure that I go to my Apple menu and go to System Preferences and choose Keyboard. And in Keyboard, I have to choose F1, F2 keys, so I could use my function keys. So I could use those keyboard shortcuts for creating new frames. Or if I'm on a laptop, touch bar, F1, F2 keys. But I'm using an external keyboard. So I'm here in the program, and I could go to my my brush tool and come over here to my tool settings, and here's where you could change the size. So I'm going to just use this to actually create my ball. And just a quick little tutorial on animation. If I create artwork, it creates a keyframe here, and I could turn on my onion skinning here so I could see what's on the next frame. And if I use F7, the function key at the top, it gives me a new frame, a new blank keyframe. And I could put new artwork in that blank keyframe. And every time I click F7, I could get a new blank keyframe. Now, something weird's happening here. When I create this artwork, you might have noticed that it's popping. If I create different piece of artwork, I saw that it was popping around. I saw a little thing jitter on the screen. If I try to move this, see how it's like popping around the screen? And I don't want it to do that. I want to be able to put my artwork wherever I want. So I'm going to go up here to my View menu and go to Snapping and say Edit Snapping and turn off all of my snapping. So now I have all these keys that I've created here, and I've got a little animation. And if I don't want something in this animation, I don't want this frame, I could just select the artwork and delete it, but I'm still going to have a blank keyframe there. And if I want to get rid of that blank keyframe, I would go Shift F5. I should first introduce F5. So F5 lets you click on a frame, or if I want to end right here, and I go to a later frame and click F5, it'll extend that out so that frame will hold over a period of time. And I could go to any frame in the movie and click F5, and it'll extend out that frame. So F5 is one of the keyboard shortcuts that I'd like for you to know. And if I want to get rid of frames, I do the opposite. I do Shift F5. And Shift F5 will eat up all these frames. It's going to like literally delete not only the artwork, but the time from the movie. Shift F5 gets rid of that. I could select one frame and then hold Shift and select a later frame to select a range and do Shift F5, and it'll get rid of all those. Or I could go here and do F5. I could just click F5 one at a time, or go to a later frame and say F5. So now I have these things held out. If I want to just get rid of the artwork on a frame, I could do Shift F6, and that gets rid of just the artwork, but it doesn't get rid of the duration of the movie. It gets rid of just the artwork. And the purpose of F6, I'm going to say F7 right here to create a new piece of artwork. So if I click F6 instead of F5, F6 creates a new, it effectively copies and pastes the artwork from the previous frame and lets me drag that around the screen. So F6 lets me move artwork that's already created. F7 lets me create new artwork. F7 is a new blank keyframe, whereas F6 is a copy of what was on the keyframe before. And Shift F6 will not throw away time from the movie, but will throw away the artwork from the movie. So I could select this whole range and say Shift F6. So that's the basic timeline control in Animate is F5 adds, Shift F5 takes away, F6 creates whatever the previous artwork was, the same artwork. So I could say, I want that same artwork here, or I want that same artwork there. Shift F6 throws away artwork, and F7, wherever you are, creates a blank keyframe. So I'd have to draw in that blank keyframe, and then F7 will give me blank keyframes. I'm going to get rid of everything. So I'm going to select the first frame, hold Shift, select the last frame, hold Shift F5 to get rid of everything. I have no keyframe to draw into. I need a keyframe to draw into. Blank keyframe is F7. So now I have artwork. When I do a bouncing ball, the first thing I want to do is create a path of action. And I'm going to use my pen tool to create a path of action. And my pen tool draws with a Bezier curve. I'm going to just show how to do this by clicking. I'm going to do this a simple way. I'm going to click, 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 click with no curves. I just want to show how a Bezier line works for those who don't know. And I'm going to click around that, and I'll see I have a point right here. And I could move this point where I want it to go. I know this is the top, and then it's going to come down. It's going to bounce up. And it's going to come here. And then it's going to bounce up. A little bit less because gravity is pulling it down, and it has less velocity coming back up. And now I need to make this into a curve. And so I'm going to make it into a curve by taking my sub-selection tool and selecting that point. I'm going to click and drag around it, and I'm going to hold Option on it and click and drag. If I drag to the right, it does this. If I drag to the left, it does this. And if I hold Shift down, it drags, and I can't go like this. So Shift will pop it so it stays like this. Holding Shift, I'm going to come here. Same thing, holding Option down, click and drag to the left. And the same thing here. Click and drag to the, and this one I have to drag to the right because I'm pulling the curve out this way. That's a quick and simple way to get to work with the Bezier with the pen tool. If you've never used it before, it's a little complicated of a tool, so I'm just going to leave it at that for here. And I've got a ground plane here that I'll actually draw in. I don't need to draw it. Actually, you'll see it. It's going to be right there. I'm going to call this path because that's the path that my bouncing ball is going to follow. And now I'm going to take my, I'll take just my paintbrush tool, and I'll make this black. I could use a pencil tool also, but I'm going to use my paintbrush tool. I'm going to come here, and I'm going to draw my marks where I want the ball to be in this path of action. And I want to do it on a different layer. So I've created a new layer because I don't want my drawing to interfere with this. This isn't a necessary step, but it's the way I like to do it. And I know that my ball is going to start at the top, and I know it's going to come down here at some point, and I know it's going to come up here, and I know it's going to come down here, and I know it's going to be here, and then it's going to be down here. And when it moves down around this curve, it's going to move symmetrically. So, and I know it's going to slow down when it comes to the top and speed up when it goes to the bottom. And the way I depict speeding up and slowing down is I have these lines closer together when it slows down and farther apart when they speed up. So the way I like to draw this is to draw symmetry like this on either side because I want it to be an even bounce. Now I'm going to come over here a little bit further like that. I'm going to come down here, see that distance, but I want to come a little further distance here. One on either side as if there was a straight line. And then I'll make this bounce be kind of dramatic by having just one here and one here. And then I'm going to come to the top and do the same thing here. This is kind of a steep curve, but I'm going to leave it like that. And I'm going to draw kind of the same thing here. One here, and then one here, and then one here, and one here. And the same thing on this side, one here, and then a little further apart, and then down to here, This will be super dramatic. It's going to be fast. It's going to bounce up really quick, slow down at the top, speed up as it goes down. So now this is my path of action. And I want this to come out over, I'm not sure exactly how many frames, but I'm going to click down here, frame 25, and then I'll hold Shift and select that on frame 25, and I'll hold F5 to have that path of action drawn all the way in. And I'm going to create a new layer for my ball. And on this layer, I want this to be a path. So I'm going to double click this and change it to, I'll change it to a guide layer, because I don't want this to show up in my final project, a guide layer. And I'm going to lock both of these. I'm going to go here to this and take back to my tool here. I'll go back. I had orange before. That was nice. Why not orange? And I'm going to go to my tool settings for my paintbrush, my tool settings, and I'll make this the size of the ball that I want it to be. And I'm going to start here, and I'm going to I'll draw the first one off the screen altogether. So I'll actually start with one blank one. I won't draw the first one. So when I open my file, it won't be there. I'll make this ball a little bit smaller. I'm going to draw one ball here, right at the intersection of those points. I'm going to click, I got to turn on my onion skinning. Oh, I do have it on. I'm going to click F7 and draw the next one here. And then F7 and draw it here. F7, draw it here. F7 here. F7 here. I'll draw it right at the bottom. And then coming up. Each time there's an intersection, I'm going to draw a new ball. I'm just dropping it right in. Arguably, I could have had a lot more. Looks like I still have some snapping. This ball is moving. I don't know why. I thought I turned off snapping. Looks like it's snapping to the guides, but it doesn't say that it is, so I don't know why it's doing that. That's a little upsetting. Because as soon as I let go, I drew it and it shifted. Yeah, it shifted up. I'm going to have to fix that. And the last one off here. So what's this? I missed one. If I use my arrow tools, I could go to the next one, the next one. So I accidentally missed a keyframe here. I'm going to do on these frames, Shift F5 to get rid of that. And I'm going to toggle through, make sure I have every place. This one came up. I'm going to nudge that one down so it's in place where I want it to be. And I think this one shifted also. I'm backing it up with my comma key, my less than key. That's good. So I'm going to back this up to the beginning, and let's just take a quick look at that. And it's okay, but it doesn't have the squash and the stretch. So I'm going to turn off these layers so I don't have to see them. And then I'm going to go to this. Actually, I'll keep it on just for right now. When it gets to the bottom, I want it to squash. So I'm going to take my free transform tool and squash it down and move it down to the bottom point and stretch it out a little, because as the form of the ball changes, the volume stays the same. So I don't want it to get smaller. I just want it to change its shape. And then the next frame here, I want to stretch it. And I want to stretch it like this as well. And so this is the squash and stretch of the bouncing ball. This one I'm going to squash it. Nudged it down with my arrow a little. Next frame with my right, with my greater than sign, or my greater than sign. And I'm bringing this in here, like this. And that should do it. I'm going to hide this and play this back. I think the ball gets a little bit too big, but that's a good bouncing ball. Pretty quick. Does the job. And the final thing is to say File, Export, Export Movie. I think it's movie. I forgot if it's movie or video. Yeah, no, I don't want movie. I don't want a SWF or a JPEG. I want to export, File, Export. video media, because that will let me set what I want it to be. So I want to export the entire movie, and I want it to be H.264. I'm fine with the. Oops, I don't know why that changed. What happened? H.264, and I like that Vimeo. It's a reasonable thing. 1080. Uh, a lot of them are very similar, but that works. Output. I'm going to choose where I want to save it. So I'll put this. I'll just put it on my desktop for now. Um, Last name, first initial, BOU, because this is our bouncing ball project, and click save. And I will say export. I don't know if it will. Can I just do it without media encoder? Let's see. That's it. I think that I've saved it out. All good to go.